Welcome back to Careers and Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Laura. Today's guest is Allie King, Vice President of Government Affairs at Forescout Technologies, where she leads the company's relationships with Congress and the executive branch. Allie spent more than a decade shaping national cybersecurity policy, from working with the Cyberspace Solarium Commission to supporting the passage of the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act of 2022 during her tenure at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Allie's an executive member of the OT Cyber Coalition, which advocates for stronger protections for the systems that power our critical infrastructure. She's also a mentor, an Auburn University McCrary Institute Senior Fellow, and a passionate advocate for making cybersecurity policy both understandable and actionable. Here's what I love most about Allie. She's got this way of making complex policy feel human and relatable. So today, I'm excited to hear her story, what drives her, the lessons she's learning, turning big ideas into real world change. So grab your coffee and let's get into it. Allie, it's always so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, pleasure.
I know you're a coffee drinker. I do know this about you, but full disclosure for our listeners, it is late in the day. Are you drinking coffee this afternoon? Tea,
I
something?
have not. I have transitioned
Okay.
to tea.
Oh, I
And
love the
for
cup.
the tea drinkers out there, it is Grand Wedding Tea by TWG.
Perfect.
So
It
it's
sounds fancy.
pretty
I love
good.
it.
It is a little fancy. I went on a tea binge when I was in Singapore last year, and
Oh,
so this is the
nice.
remnant. This is a big
Perfect.
last of it.
I love that. And tell us for our audio only listeners about your cup. Why is that a
Yes.
special one?
Sorry. For those that don't have the pleasure of the visual, this is my McCurry Institute Cyber Focus Cup, one of the very first of its kind. It is a treasure to me.
I love it, and I can't wait to dive into all of the cyber policy work that you've done. But I want to start I want to go way back. Go back with me for a second. When you were younger, little Allie, growing up, what did you
Yes.
want to be when you grew up?
I guess my earliest memories was I'm told that I was a willful slash feral child.
Okay.
And like my neighbors, where my parents still are, often, joke they're like, you end up great. Like you used to be eating dirt. Now look at you. If that's not progress, I don't know what is. But from the smallest age, I had an older sister, so I always wanted to be able to do more things, kind of keep up with
hmm
the bigger kids. And
hmm
so there wasn't one specific profession that I idolized or saw myself doing. It was just to be able to make my own decisions.
Your second child then.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a second child thing, I think.
Very much so. So, it changed over the years depending on what I was focused on at the moment. But
Sure.
I just wanted to finish school and then be an adult. And then, like the tragic story of you get what you want, and then you're like, wait a
Be
second.
careful what you wish
Yeah,
for. And here you are now.
exactly.
Well, I think a lot of people, you're in the policy world, right? And I think a lot of people start out thinking that they're going to go in like a technical or operational track, maybe.
Sure.
You had roles in the Navy early on,
Mhm.
right? So take us back to some of those earlier roles.
Right.
What was it about those like early technical cyber inflected roles that really grabbed your attention?
Sure. So, getting into the DeLorean, I would say probably around 2011, I joined the Navy as a civilian, working just outside of DC in Crystal City. I was fortunate enough to be brought in and do some foreign military sales work, which sounds really exciting, and it is, but essentially, what I was tasked to do was more of like technical project management type of work. And I was just so grateful to be able to have this job with the Navy. I aspired
Oh
as
yeah.
a rising young professional out of
Yeah.
school to be able to do this kind of work. And what was interesting about it was not just the travel and getting to work with partners and allies on a shared mission, which was just, it still makes me excited thinking back on it. But the hardest part of it was the cyber component. It was
Mm,
breaking ground and all the technical or a lot of the security issues that you
yeah.
from a force protection perspective that I was working on this project, it was, hey, there's some cybersecurity requirements here. It's not really fit for purpose for what you're doing, but you're going to do it anyways. It's not applicable. And if you don't do it, like you don't get to
Right.
you have no authority to operate on this many years in the making multi-million dollar strategic asset that's
Kind
super
of a big
important.
deal.
And so
Yeah.
it got me to thinking, let me dig into this more. So, like, how can policy really shape an environment? And I had some guidance or some wisdom from an older colleague who been around the block. And I said, this policy stuff's kind of interesting. And they were like, well, you know what's more interesting? Um, actually writing policy that you can execute because a lot
Yeah.
of the folks that write the policy are not the operators.
Yes.
And so I always brought that mentality with
Mhm.
and everything I do. It has to be outcome driven,
Yeah.
less prescriptive, and people have got to be able to really execute what you put together. So the academic exercise, while it can be interesting, it won't stand the test of time. So you got to be able to walk and chew gum a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you eventually became let's see if I can get this right, the Strategic Communications and Legislative Director for the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. That is a mouthful.
It very much is, and I think there was like some kind of competition on can we like really make this title as long as possible.
I think you win.
I think we're on the medal stand, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity. I
Yeah,
love
for people
every
who
moment
aren't
of it.
familiar, what was the commission
Sure.
trying to do, and then what was your role in that?
Sure. So just to kind of give you like a little context around all of this. So you have the two branches of government. You have the executive branch, and then you've got the legislature branch. And oftentimes these think of them as like two sets of hands. They should shake, but
Hmm.
sometimes they like punch
Oh,
each other,
sure.
and
Hmm.
it doesn't always work. And so within cybersecurity, which is national security, this has been a hot topic for many years, and there's like fits and starts of being
Hmm.
able to pass legislation, which is the policy and the resources to execute to the executive branch to go and do these things that are going to make us more resilient. Well, over time, those fits and starts, then Senator John McCain was really concerned that we as a country weren't moving in the right direction fast enough.
Hmm.
Again, like the legislature branch and the executive branch were just not being able to shake hands. And so he wanted to create a commission. And this commission's purpose wasn't just to bring in experts to study a problem and give recommendations that sadly a lot of people just don't read. He
Hmm.
wanted to do it differently. He wanted to have this commission that actually had members of Congress as members, but then also very, very senior members within executive departments and agencies. Think DOD, FBI,
Hmm.
the list kind of goes down, but also some folks from private industry. You're all going to come together. It's bicameral, bipartisan, and you're going to figure out a strategy to protect the United States from significant cybersecurity attacks. And you're going to write legislation. You're going to like do
Hmm.
the hard work and try and get these things pushed through. And I was brought in because at the time I was a defense fellow for Rep. Mike Gallagher out of Wisconsin. He became
Hmm.
co-chair, and that really kind of pulled me out of like my typical up to that point career within the Department of Defense, within the Navy, to be a little bit more broader national
Hmm.
security. And we were, to our surprise, wildly successful. Part of that was the makeup of this commission, but also COVID happened. And so
Mm.
as that Iron Curtain came down, we were able to leverage folks not being able to have their calendars full all the time. It created more access and engagement
Yeah.
for us. And we really were able to get an incredible amount of our requirements and recommendations into law. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And so we continue to look for opportunities. The folks that used to be on the commission to, fulfill any of those recommendations that are still kind of dwindling.
As you're saying, you've been central to some of these, major federal cybersecurity laws getting through parts of the NDAA, right?
Right.
CIRCIA, which let's see if I can remember, Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act of
Yeah, that sounds good.
2022.
I think you like landed the
2020.
triple axle because I know it's a mouthful.
Yes. Well, like you said, it's one thing to propose legislation, quite another to get it through Congress. That's an act in and of itself. And then, yet another to get it implemented and actually execute. So what are some of the lessons that you have learned about what makes cybersecurity policy not just like ambitious, but also practical, effective? How do you find or what helps you build the momentum and the buy-in that you
Sure.
actually need to get legislation through? What's been your experience in that?
Well, I think what's been useful to me,
Hmm.
besides the amazing opportunity through the Solarium Commission,
Yeah.
because it very much was an unlock. And it also, puts you in a position where you know what success looks like. And so you continue to want to chase after it. You
Mm.
know, it's achievable. It's not a pipe dream and it's necessary for us.
Yeah.
But for me, it taught me that so many folks are not ones and zeros people, and that's totally okay. But that seems to kind of be the reputation of folks that work in cybersecurity is that you have to be on a hoodie in a basement, like cracking into some like classified system, and you shouldn't do that. It's
Right.
very illegal. So please don't
Please don't
don't
do that.
but for me, it's just the practicality and all of
Yeah.
that. Technology, whether it's cybersecurity or any other thing, continues to permeate our daily lives. And it really does make us more efficient. It provides us with a lot of opportunities, but there's risk associated with it. And so we always need to make sure that we balance the opportunity with the appropriate amount of risk.
Hmm.
And how can you explain that and really have conversations that are not dry or boring, but pull people in because they very much are live participants and
Yeah.
stakeholders in this. And you arrive at different parts of this challenge because it's not easy with curiosity and not judgment. And also recognize that you can talk to very senior people, you can talk to junior people, and everybody can contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a full comprehension or all the answers on how things are going to work. And so I really like how collaborative the space is.
Yeah, I love that. Now I rattled off the acronym
Sure.
for the full acronym for CIRCIA, but for anyone who doesn't know what CIRCIA is, can you explain that in really simple terms, and tell folks listening why it was important?
So this law came about in the wake of Colonial Pipeline. So folks on the East Coast, you might remember this one time where you try to get gas and there was a little bit of chaos
A
and
little bit, yeah.
mayhem going on at the gas station where folks believed that there was a shortage and it just kind of was a little bit of silliness, but that silliness can spiral into more serious issues.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of concern across the national security space within the White House within DHS. And people were very concerned because a lot of the attack surface happens outside the oversight or they're even the inside of the federal space. And
Hmm.
so there was a decision that was made that we needed to have a law that required covered entities, and covered entities is the legal word, but that says somebody this applies to,
Yep.
that if you experience a cybersecurity breach that you deem material or has an impact, that you have a legal obligation to report it in a certain amount of time. And so that was discussed heavily because a lot of these rules kind of exist. There are different
Hmm.
departments and agencies that had put out requirements for folks, but there really wasn't like an all-encompassing one
Yeah.
that was nested under CISA because they're seen as like the national coordinator because you want all that information in one place. So that's where the Circea law was born. And they're supposed to have a final rule out this fall, but they might need a little bit more time to get it right because this law is a absolute monster. And when I say by
Mm-hmm.
monster, it's not, it could be scary for some folks, but I'm talking about size. Like it
Yeah.
covers over 300,000 entities.
Yeah.
And that, for other folks that kind of live in this federal space, that's roughly the size of the defense industrial base, right? So it's big.
Yeah.
Because it's big, we want to make sure that the definition for critical infrastructure and all of the information that private sector, specifically the Chamber of Commerce, provided,
Mm-hmm.
again, with the interest of, I know what you want, but how do we actually execute this?
Yeah.
We can kind of meet that happy middle because it's going to
Yeah.
be super important.
Yeah. And I think just kind of going back to your point, a lot of the work a lot of the stuff you work on,
Mhm.
affects systems people don't even really think about, right? Like pipelines and water systems and power plants and all of that. So when it comes to operational technology, right? Why is OT security such a big deal?
Sure.
And how do you explain it to somebody who doesn't live in the cyber world?
So a good friend of mine named Sasha Cohn, because I want to give her credit for this, because this is not original, but I love using it. She's with the Aspen Institute. She talks about traditional IT
Hmm.
being, folks focused on like scams and ransomware,
Uh-huh.
and that kind of like um, brings a lot of attention to that space because we're seeing with cybercrime, if it was a GDP worldwide, it would be like number three or some crazy number.
Hmm.
So like there is like a really like sinister economy around all of that. But for OT, it gets into like the health and safety aspects of what's happening. And so you have to pay attention to both. You can't do, well, I'm going to do one at the expense of the other
Sure.
because you're kind of sitting on a melting ice cube. So you have
Hmm.
to kind of do multiple things at once. But for the OTPs, think of it as like the digital space meets a physical industrial setting. So it's sensors, it's field devices, it's all kinds of things that we need functioning to support water,
Hmm.
power, telecom, health sector, all kinds
Hmm.
of things that are necessary for modern life. And if we have an issue with the Hoover Dam or all the infrastructure that ensures that water flows through Colorado River, we've got serious problems there. Or even with ports.
Hmm.
Those are important for us and transportation hubs as well, like North Platte,
Yep.
Omaha. Omaha is super important. Like if
Yeah.
there's an issue there, it's going to be problematic and it's going to cost a lot of money, and people could potentially die or have some serious health issues there. So
Yeah.
we can't ignore one for the other. And while they're both inherently different in terms of like functionality, you don't need to be afraid of either one of them, but you do have to show an interest and a responsibility in managing these things. And so
Hmm.
I tell folks, just think of OT or the guys or the gals with the hard hats and the tool belts going underneath the road to make sure the fuel lines are still working, or they're behind the drywall, like really understanding what's going on with like your HVAC system at a hospital.
Hmm.
Those things are super important. And that's where I've decided to focus a lot of my time and energy on, just because the IT space is kind of saturated at the moment.
Hmm.
And I feel like we have way too much exposure on this side,
Yeah.
and where they both, have significant challenges is around having a trained workforce to do a lot of the jobs that are in both of the fields, but just in general, people having like a baseline understanding of why both are critical.
Yeah. I think that you sit in a really interesting spot, like you speak both tech and policy. Um, but
I
you
just
have to
want to
make
make
the
sure I
case.
understand it before I try to explain it to somebody
There
else.
you go. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make too, is that you're talking often to lawmakers, decision makers, right? Who are probably not technical. So how do you make a topic like OT, for example, resonate for people who are not technical experts. And I think you've done that a little bit, like just giving some of those examples of like tangible examples,
Right.
the person with the hard hat, or what is your approach normally to making those technical issues maybe a little less technical so that your lawmaker, your policymaker can understand?
So I look to kind of like shorten the learning curve a little bit.
Hmm.
And so if you can meet people where they are,
Yeah.
that's where you want to start. So, for example, if I'm going to talk to Senator Schmidt's staff, he's the junior senator from Missouri. I'm going to do my research on what's in Missouri, and be able to take examples within the state and have
Hmm.
a conversation around the things that they're familiar with, that they drive past, that they use, and be able to kind of put it in that context and
Hmm.
then answer questions that they might have and kind of focus again on the functions at a very high level. Because again, we're outcome focused here.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm going to come in and you have to do things a certain way. And if you don't, then I'm going to make an argument from a compliance perspective of why this is bad. For us, it's the outcome is that you want to continue to have services available for the community. And
Hmm.
there's certain things that just cannot go offline. We discuss why that's important and then what needs to happen moving forward to reduce that risk. So I invite them into the problem solving space
Sure.
functionally because I want to know what they think. I can't
Yeah.
go in and say, here is all the
Yeah,
answers,
right.
and I just need you to sign this and just trust me. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, part of it is like connecting to what they care about. That's a really big piece of it there. Um, I think you could probably agree policy wins are never easy.
Yeah.
There are often trade-offs, negotiations, or often setbacks, right? You kind of touched on that. I think the other thing too is that cybersecurity is often still seen as a cost and not necessarily an investment.
Mhm.
Would you say that's the biggest challenge to getting policy across the finish line?
I think we have not, we're not in a culture yet where we're kind of treating cybersecurity similar to automobiles, where over time the amount of injuries and deaths on the road has decreased because Department of Transportation and other agencies that have jurisdiction on this have
Hmm.
said you're going to, have seatbelts and you're going to have
Right.
airbags and you're
Yeah.
going to have X, Y, and Z around your lighting systems. And over time, that has reduced casualties because that was always the goal. It's like, let's figure out how we can do this. The same thing will eventually continue to permeate within our subconscious and conscious around cybersecurity because everything is connected to the internet now,
Yeah.
right? It's not just that you have a few of these things and
Yeah.
it's easier to manage. Like the risk attack surface. Well, the attack surface really is everything in there, and you have to kind of make decisions around. Well, what's more critical and important? Is the Port of Houston the most critical thing, or is
Hmm.
this electronic toothbrush important? But where
Right.
it gets really spicy is that you can use a toothbrush or a thermostat in a fish tank in Las Vegas to be able to access some really like important and critical stuff you don't want people to have.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the toothbrush just to focus on the port because they might be both connected.
Right.
Oh
Right.
no. So we continue to kind of have those discussions
Yeah.
with folks about things. And then there's a really important recognition that even when you have some level of success, which is, hey, I got this policy into law, the execution piece
Is
is super
important.
spicy.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
because, again, now you're in this real world situation where you have all these different variables.
Hmm.
And does it still do what it was designed to do?
Hmm.
Talking to you about the investment and the cost. Um, Security is always going to cost you either in the beginning because you're going to buy something that's going to mitigate that risk, or the
Hmm.
back end where you have to pay to make yourself whole if that's even possible.
Yeah.
The consequence piece. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always a cost. I rather have it on the front end
Absolutely.
and not later on.
Yeah, in the disaster world, there are mitigation studies that show, cost savings per dollar, right, when you invest up front versus like on the back end. Are there similar studies on the
Yes. Yeah,
cybersecurity?
there's certainly exists, and it's kind of within like devices, but also this is where something I find it exciting. People are going to
Yeah.
laugh at me in my field. It's called an SBOM, software bill of materials, or there's an AI bomb, but simply put, like what's in your software? Because
Hmm.
no, I mean, there's all kinds of like bugs and different things that if you kind of put it together creates a great product that you want to
Uh-huh.
take to market very quickly.
Yep.
But within there's some issues that you might encounter later, but because you
Hmm.
can't see it because we put all this frosting marketing on top of it,
Yeah.
it's still there. And
Right.
so being able to, especially with how ubiquitous AI is now, it's
Yeah.
important that we continue to have an understanding of what's in our supply chain
Yeah.
moving forward. And so for me, I want to continue to work with different folks to be able to kind of peel back those layers
Hmm.
because there could be some spooky stuff in there, but because of how you're networked and different tools you have, you don't have to worry about it. But you always should want to know. You just don't want to assume
Hmm.
and then just be like, oh, well, I'll deal with it later. And it's like,
Later. Yeah.
that could really bite you. And
Yeah.
so getting people to recognize that it's not just knowing what you have, but being able to leverage that to continue to make good, smart decisions.
Hmm.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. You mentioned, speaking of threat and, risk landscape, right? You mentioned AI, supply chain risk, geopolitical tensions, right? There's a lot changing. Um, what do you see as the biggest issues that we need to get ahead of? Maybe
Sure.
let's say the next 5 years.
I think there are certain events that are driving decisions, resourcing, and even the policy piece as
Hmm.
well. Just kind of knit it all together.
Yeah.
Is 2027. So leading up to 2027, we're going to have some major events in the United States. We're going to have the World Cup. We're going
Hmm.
to have the Olympics,
Hmm.
and in all that focus and excitement around hosting these events, a lot of folks in the national security space are increasingly concerned that Xi Jinping is getting older and that if there's going to be a go time to see if he can take Taiwan by force, might happen while all these events and things are happening. And so a lot of folks in this new administration are focused on what can we do in terms of ensuring we can buy down some of that risk
Hmm.
in 26 and make sure it's working in 27.
Sure.
So going back to this critical infrastructure and the operational technology, the OT that underpins it,
Hmm.
we have seen, and this was about a little, almost 3 years ago, like time flies, but it was the first time you had four principal cyber directors testify. This was a couple years ago at the House Select Committee on the CCP. You had our former boss, Director, Assistant Director Jen Easterly. You had the FBI director. You had the um, director from Office National Cyber Office, and then you also had General Paul Nakasone from NSA Cyber Command, like 2 hours
Hmm.
before he's going to retire, and they were
Yeah.
all like um, Volt Typhoon, which is a Chinese threat actor, is embedding across our critical infrastructure. And people will say, yeah, but my lights still work, my water's still running, I still got power. Well,
Right.
we'll see, right? And they are pre-positioning across because they want to understand our systems and they want to potentially leverage access to change our decision calculus in an event that something might happen.
Hmm.
That's very serious. And so, fast forward to where we are today. folks are really looking to not just admire this problem, but say, okay, what are our most critical assets? We know the technology exists. What are the things we need to have in place by 26 and make sure they're working by 27 to kind of take that off the table? Because cybersecurity, especially in the cyberspace or domain, depending on how like nerdy you want to be, um, if you lose first movers advantage, you are on your back feet.
Yeah.
That has like a knock-on effect on your ability to do so many other things. So if you think of like elements of national power, you really want to ensure that somebody does not take that from you.
Right.
So this is where some of the work that I do with many other very talented people, thoughtful people, all mission focused, are looking to be resources for the folks that are in office, but also the folks that are in, states, small municipalities across the United States that want to do the right thing. They also recognize that they might need some help. So we want to be able to be a resource to everybody.
Yeah. And that's a lot to think about, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
when you think about all of the things that we face, right, in the next few years, what gives you hope that we can meet what's required of us to face that risk?
sure. So what gives me hope is that a few things. Before he was elected into office at the RNC in Indianapolis, it was on then candidate, but now President Trump's priorities to defend critical infrastructure using all elements of national power.
Hmm.
What's nice about this is a continuum from previous administrations, but it's now like highlighted and focused. It's
Hmm.
not to say that nobody cared about it before, but now this was
Sure.
kind of like moving up the priority list. And so I see that focus in this current administration from the White House down. And then
Hmm.
I also see more folks across state, local, tribal, territorial areas recognizing, like, yes, I need to ensure that, my community has access to these critical functions and looking to leverage resources that come from the federal government, but
Yeah.
also engaging with different solution providers in industry because what I love about this is that competition is fierce
Yeah.
in this space, which is really good because there isn't one product or service that can do everything for everybody.
Right.
So I think there's more folks coming to the realization that I don't have to do this alone.
Hmm.
Or if I don't know how this works, I can put myself in a position where there are people who are going to look to try and help me work through this. And I think in doing that, that will help us be more resilient. I mean, this country is kind of is nothing short of amazing, but we are a target as well. But there's a lot of people who do take responsibility and are focused on looking to continuing to understand how we can keep the lights on, the water
Yeah.
pumping, and I get to meet them a lot in
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and it just encourages me to let's problem solve through this faster. Or
Yeah.
let me ask someone, does this make sense to you? And if they're like,
Hmm.
what is that? And we're like, okay, start over.
So let's say there's someone listening right now that's like, wow, that there's such an opportunity there. Allie seems really cool. I want to work with her. I want to do what she's doing. For someone who is interested in pursuing, a career, whether it's a career in policy or they're thinking about how they can influence, policy or regulation on the
Right.
cyber side or otherwise. For someone especially that's like looking to make, 'cause there are a lot of folks right now making sort of mid-career pivots or even folks who are just starting out early career. Um, what do you recommend as first steps? Are there maybe tools, resources,
Sure.
experiences that you found really helpful in sort of building up that portfolio?
Of course. And so if I were, 5 years, 6 years
Hmm.
ago in a position where I was like, I like this field, I want to figure out how I can get into it.
Yeah.
Um, I think and I don't want to, cast a negative light on it, but there was once upon a time where I thought I would probably need to go back and get a master's degree.
Sure.
There are a master's degree in computer science, and there's also kind of like technical degrees that kind of touch this tangentially.
Hmm.
But higher education can be very expensive.
Yeah.
What's wonderful now is that there are certifications that you can do. There's still a bit of an investment, but it's at a fraction of what you would pay to
Hmm.
get a master's or a PhD in this space. Security Plus certifications where I would start, that's kind of like the baseline of the terms, the big methodologies. Um, you want to be able to kind of have that baseline. And you can approach that through Coursera. Google has a boot camp. I've personally done it, even
Yeah.
I understand a lot of this already, but it's just like, oh, I just want to make sure that I'm continuing to challenge myself, even though
Yeah.
this space to move forward on that. Like that's where I would start.
Yeah.
There's kind of like an independent study element, a curiosity piece that
Hmm.
invest some time. And yes, there's probably some financial investment, but nothing as significant as going back to school and doing.
Yeah.
That if you want to do that, like I don't want to discourage you, but for folks where that's not an option, I just want to make sure that that resource exists. So you want to start there, and then you want to continue to like appreciate you as an operator, because many people have Wi-Fi at their homes.
Hmm.
They take advantage of personal devices. Um, Continue to kind of like have an understanding of like, what do I need to do to protect myself? So, cybersecurity girl, Caitlin, if you don't follow her, hopefully we can put a link in this podcast. I watch her all the time because she's always giving you tips on how to protect yourself.
Yep.
So, like, start kind of like following folks that are looking out for your best interest and kind of showing you how you can do these like little steps that'll reduce exposure because you really do have um, there's a lot of things out there that it may not feel like a truck is driving down the street that's going to hit you, but it can still hurt you.
Hmm.
So you want to try to do everything you can to kind of build up your own understanding. And when you have this personal responsibility and you're kind of eager and wanting to understand this, that permeates to the people around you. So you're helping your larger community and then also learning this at the same time. There's events that happen where you can meet folks who are looking to break in or not. So you don't have to just read a book and then hope some great job's going to land in at your feet. It just doesn't work that way. But
Yeah.
if you continue to be engaged and focused on being able to understand this space from a personal accountability, but then also see all the different opportunities. It's like the saying, like if you hang around the barber shop, you're gonna get a haircut
Right.
and things will develop. They may not develop how you think or on your time,
Yeah.
but it's so dynamic and you continue to have success with the things that you're consistent with.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to be consistent with this and it
Yeah.
will open up opportunities that you didn't even know existed.
Existed, right? Yeah, that's great advice. And I wonder now if you were to go back, to your early career days, like, is that what you would, the advice you'd give yourself?
God, like that's such like an amazing question. My younger self, I'd just be like, continue to work hard,
Yeah.
make sure you network because
Yeah.
where I screwed up, if I'm being completely honest, I was like, I'm not an engineer, but I'm in this engineering space. I need to really establish credibility. All those things are true, but I did that at the expense of networking and
Mm.
going to events because I was just so hyper focused on doing
Like
a,
doing the work.
establishing my credibility that way
Hmm.
that I completely missed out on many, many years of engaging with folks because the wild thing is every job that I have is
Yeah.
because it was a referral or somebody recommended me.
Right.
And by pure coincidence and luck, that worked for me, but
Yeah.
please don't do that. Like it's so important that you leverage this larger group
For
of folks
sure.
around you because yeah, it's just wild not to.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great point too, like joining some of those networks, doing in person, even if you're not in the DC area, right? Like finding the local
Yeah.
groups and meetups and conferences and all of those things to get FaceTime with folks and build and then continue to foster that network is just invaluable.
Yes.
Um, I'm going to do a little lightning round because I know you do. I know you do a lot of reading because you do a lot of traveling. I
Yes.
think you're definitely making up for the networking years that you lost out on now. What is your favorite book that you've read recently and why?
So, my favorite book that I've read that's cyber flavored is Empire of AI.
Yes.
Um, Incredible investigative journalism,
Yes,
and it like made my hair curl
I
because
know.
there's just so much in there that I didn't know. So it was like half part, holy crap, I'm so embarrassed, like to work in this space and I didn't know this, to like, yeah, that's like really interesting, like why they did X instead of Y or Z.
Hmm.
And, Section 230, for folks who may not know, um, provides an incredible amount of liability protections for social media providers,
Hmm.
folks connected with the internet, but also AI as well. So, like, this is a space that's kind of like the Wild West. And
Yeah.
so, while it's amazing that there's so many different, capabilities and opportunities associated with new technology, there's also risks. So, it's good to have this balanced approach to the good, the bad, and really some really depressing things because people can get hurt
Yeah.
if you're not careful. And it's something that you don't want to look away from just because
Hmm.
it doesn't happen in this country or you don't see it or experience it yourself. And so it was an education for me and it was interesting. It was not stale or boring. So I encourage
Oh, it's a
folks
good
to read
one.
that.
Yeah.
And I, for like personal reading, have just started this book here, Mark
Oh.
Twain's Notebooks, because
Oh.
I really just love him. And I continue to want to kind of like understand who he was as a person. And so I found that when I was in Middleburg a couple weeks ago. And so when I've got some free time on my own, I kind of like to dig into people. I think they're really interesting.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing this. We'll get those added to the book club, which you can find on careersandcoffeepod.com.
Yes.
Um, I asked you about advice for your younger self, but if you were to give someone just starting out in the field one piece of advice, something that they could do like today, what would it be?
So if you're just starting out, find a few podcasts that you really like that's going to help you get smarter faster because everybody learns differently, but I like to be able to have these ongoing dialogues in my head of what's important. So I like to listen to Pivot Podcast with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher because they do kind of talk about tech and business. Super, super important because trying to read that in a newspaper is kind of like, ugh.
Eh.
But hearing somebody like add like expert commentary, sense of
Yeah.
humor, get smart so much faster. And you don't have to agree with them, but it allows you to
Yeah.
think critically and become like an independent thinker. Super important. I would also say when you get invited to things, really try and make an effort to go. This is advice that I have taken to heart this year
Yeah.
because in the past, I got comfortable just, focusing on doing critical writing or reading. And I just, missed out on opportunities to engage with my peers, have
Hmm.
conversations with folks. And just have greater exposure beyond like my own little swim lane or what I'm doing tactically at the moment. It's super important. So try and like the best that you can continue to, do what you need to do to execute your job and do it very, very well. But building that environment in greater community is so important. So when I get invited to different events, like I stop and I'm like, I need to have a really good reason not to go.
Yeah. I always think about those kind of things like what would you regret more, going or not going, doing it or not doing it, right? Like usually it's not doing it, right?
It's not doing it, but I've had to like have like conversations with myself because you hear the fear of missing out, but there's like the relief of missing out.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
The
Like,
other
you
side of
gotta
it.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's you kind of have to evaluate on a case by case basis, I guess.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
folks who are figuring out, what actions they need to take in terms of keeping their digital self safer, keeping themselves safer online, protecting their data. What is one, can be more than one, but one thing you recommend, another action that they can take today?
So the first thing that I've done, and I've done this with my parents as well, is multi-factor authentication.
Hmm.
It can be a pain, like I acknowledge that, but it's good for you, okay? Just like you would filter your water, okay? You're gonna want to kind of, have something there that's gonna help you in the long run, and leverage like a password manager.
Yeah.
But if you are getting all these like weird texts, like, hey, you've got some like unpaid bill with
Yeah.
Easy Pass, or weird people from across the political stream or asking you for $5, or all kinds of like crazy
Hmm.
nonsense that's happening. It's because your data is out there,
Yeah.
right? They are buying your data, they're selling it on the black, like it's just everywhere and out there. So the third piece that I would do is also find a service that does continuous monitoring for you. So Delete Me, where they
Hmm.
will go and help get you off these lists,
Yeah.
or actively kind of look out for your best interests, because I mean it's everywhere. It never ends. It doesn't stop. And you just don't have time as a busy person
Yeah.
to go and do all this yourself. So there's like a smarter, faster way to do
That will
things.
do it for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's anything that makes life easier for most folks is like, welcome.
Yeah. Easy and
Um,
secure.
Easy
That
and
is
secure.
like the
There you
lane you
go.
want to be in.
That's right. What are you most excited about?
So, I'm most excited about, I guess, in the short term, Singapore International Cyber Week's coming up. And it's one of those events where, yes, it's very far away, and it's the humidity's pretty aggressive in Singapore, but they are right on the equator. But I look forward to this every year because it's an opportunity for me to meet with between 10 and 12 different governments.
Hmm.
And the challenges that we have here, they have them in other places. And to be able to do that kind of like international team building
Yeah.
is really rewarding. Uh,
Yeah.
I think, prejudice can't exist if you travel. And it's one of these things where you just really appreciate what you have, and it's worth protecting when you have an opportunity to go different places, see different things. Like the world
Yeah.
keeps turning. Living in DC is kind of a bubble, and it can
Yeah.
be neurotic. So you really want the opportunity to kind of, take a break, and be able to get some fresh air on the other side of the globe and meet some new folks. All the folks from Singapore that I've had an opportunity to work with are super impressive people.
Yeah.
Continue to challenge me to, read more, look at things differently, and continue to have opportunities to meet new folks. And so I'm super motivated, especially in this field, to engage with people who have a curiosity and a passion for this mission space. So I look forward to hopefully being able to connect with some of the folks who might be watching this now.
Awesome. I love that, Allie. Any social media or other handles, resources you wanted to share?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I think I try to ensure that a lot of like the op-eds or the podcasts or just anything that I contribute to is there. I also like to highlight a lot of really critical work that other folks are doing, but make it
Yeah.
interesting and easy because it is like short attention span theater. So, if you check in from time to time, I can tell you what's happening with Circea, and it's not gonna like fry your brain.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, that's 10 minutes I can't get back ever. It's just like, oh, okay, we're making progress.
Well,
Great.
hopefully nobody is feeling that way after listening to this. I think
It's
you do
quite
a great
possible. You
I
never
think you do
know. But
you do a
yeah.
great job of making it easy to connect to and relate to. And I think that's why you have found success in what you do. So
Well, I
thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
You
Thank you so
know,
much for joining me and spending the time explaining some of this policy wonky stuff.
absolutely. Just remember, like, there are people out there who are trying to do good things, and we all have to work together. So appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Allie. And that's a wrap on this episode of Careers in Coffee Talk. Big thanks to our guest today for pouring out so many great insights. And hey, thanks to you for hanging out with us. If this episode gave you a little jolt of inspiration or made your day a little bit more brewed and balanced, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming up next. Got a minute? Drop me a 5-star review. It's basically the podcast equivalent of buying me a fancy oat milk latte. Quick disclaimer though, the views expressed in this episode are personal and do not reflect those of any organization. This conversation is not an endorsement of any company, product, or service. It's just real talk over virtual coffee, okay? So until next time, stay curious, stay caffeinated, and keep chasing the career that makes you feel the most alive. Catch you next time.